Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm talking with Ivett Ördög. We talked about learning to program to be in control of their computer and making money in secondary school by creating websites. I'm Yves from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and hello with me I have Ivett. Is that the right pronunciation of your name?
Yes, it's Ivett. Correct.
Right. Thank you. Or good that I do. And well, Yvette, one of the first things I always want to show to people is where are we? And I'm here in Belgium. Oh no, yeah, in Belgium, in Ghent. And
Mhm.
you are in Munich, if I'm correctly. So, and that's actually a city where there's quite a lot of people that I've already interviewed. So, and
Yeah.
of course, I'm not showing the exact locations. We don't want to help stalkers to find the exact location of people. That's not our goal. And let's bring you back on screen. And in Munich, it's Europe. On my side, it's just a couple of minutes after 8 o'clock in the evening. And what's the time on your side?
It's the exact same time zone.
Exactly. In Europe, a lot of countries are in the same time
Yeah.
zone, so we're not that far away. So that's really nice. Well, Yvette, for the few people that don't know you, could you, before we jump into the questions, give us a short introduction on who are you and what you want people
Mhm.
to know about
Okay, so I'm Ivett Ördög, and I've been a software engineer for a really long time. I learned programming as a kid. I was 8 years old, and my father
you?
taught me programming. So without giving away too much of my age, it's been over 30 years ago. So I have quite a bit of programming behind me. For the last decade, I've been mostly leading teams. Right up until about a year ago, when I decided to quit my job and start my own business. And that's what I'm doing right now. I have a kind of a workshop. I'm going to talk about it probably. It's called Lean Poker, and I'm running these workshops, and that's my job right now. It's mostly about how to deliver value early and often. So basically, agile stuff.
Really, really cool. And when you say you learned programming at the year age, was that then immediately a passion? And did you keep programming, or did you lose it at some point and then return to it, or how should I see that?
That's a really good question. So for me, that there was two periods in my life when I kind of stopped programming,
Mm,
and it, so when I started, that was an interesting story. My father was a software engineer, and he had a computer at home, which I always used for playing games. And he kind of got annoyed because he wanted to work, and then and then at some point
because
he
wait. Just I want to share a little bit because I'm probably a little bit older than you, but still at that time having one computer at home was probably already something. These
yeah
days, at the most homes, like I have three children. There's like five
yeah
computers because everybody has their own computer. But
yeah
at that time, one computer in a household was already a lot. And so, if your father wanted to work, there was only one computer. That's what you're saying, yeah?
actually it was the 80s,
Mm,
and I was born in Hungary. This is Eastern Bloc. So
wow.
there, having one computer at home, that was
Wow.
amazing. Like, I
Exactly.
don't I don't really like I didn't really know any friends who had a computer at home. That was like mind blowing to have something like that at home. And then, of course, I was playing a lot on it, and he got annoyed, and he kind of convinced me that when I'm playing with these games, then the computer is controlling me, and I'm not in control of the computer, and that
Mm,
bugged me like hell. Like, what? I don't want to be controlled. I want
Control.
to control. And that basically that's how he convinced me that I should learn programming, because then I would be controlling the computer. And oh my God, it was an instant love. Like, I spent so much time just coding. Whenever my father wasn't working, I basically stopped playing with games. I started just coding in QBasic at the time. And I remember it's a very nice story when my mother, the computer used to be in our cellar, and my mom came down at like 3 a.m. in the morning, really furious of, what are you doing down here? You should be sleeping. It's school night. But I was so absorbed in coding that I just didn't realize that the time has passed.
Wow. But was that still at age 8? You probably were already a little bit
I was
older.
more like 10 at this time,
Okay.
but like I was still definitely a kid, right?
Right.
And then she said, you're going to be just like your father."
And
I
was that
think,
meant as an insult or as a
no,
compliment?
I think that was meant as a compliment.
And
But
did you
for,
receive it as a
half,
compliment or because
yeah, probably half compliment, half insult.
yeah,
But
because
it's
I
a
can
nice
imagine
story.
as an age of a kid of 10 years old, like, okay, being told you're going to be just like your father, I'm not sure that
I
most
mean,
children would like that.
it was definitely meant in a playful way. So she
Mhm.
definitely said it in a playful way, and I took it as such. Uh, so that was the beginning, and then the first time I stopped coding was during university because when I was deciding which university to go to, I was like, I can already do programming. Like, I wouldn't go to software engineering university.
Mm.
What would I learn there? Oh my God, how wrong I was. I could have learned so much there. But I was like, yeah, I already know how to program. So why go there? Um, so I decided to go and get a master's in mathematics. And then I kind of fell in love with topology, and there was this period when I was so absorbed with mathematics that I didn't really code that much. Which is interesting because before that I was already making money out of making
Wow.
websites. Yeah, during high school. Like, this is the 90s, right? In the 90s, if you could write HTML, you were king. Like, you could actually make money even as a kid.
Yes.
Um, so then I did the university, and after university I started coding again. But during the university it wasn't like I didn't like coding anymore. I did like coding, it was just I didn't have time. And then the second time I stopped for a while, that was as a result of a burnout. I just burned out in the whole corporate thing, and for a while I felt like I don't like coding anymore. Now these days I'm realizing that I even then I liked coding. I just got so sick of the corporate environment that it kind of felt like the coding has also lost its charm. But yeah, I mean, this whole day I was coding today and I love it again. So
Okay, that's already well. We've just been into introduction and we already jumped right into your story. I really like it, and I think we got to know you already a lot better. So thank you for sharing all these stories already. Let's move into that first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
who, I mean, so this is a difficult question for me because my life has been an open book for quite some time. I have also been an LGBTQ activist, so if someone wants to look it up, what's my connection there? They can. I'm not going to talk about that now. But the point that I want to make is that because I have been so out and in the open and talking so much about my career, and talking at conferences, and later on being an activist, it's really hard to share something that is a secret about me. But basically, one playful thing I could share is that when I was like right after university, I had this weird idea that I would want to learn how to make cocktails. So
Hmm.
I actually got a bartender license. So
Wow.
I can shake some really nice cocktails, and I have a couple I that I invented myself.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
So
one
that's
of
more
my
than just a license. Yeah. So you
yeah.
used, I don't know, um, I was about to say you use your imagination, but I'm not sure. Is that also because you love computing, you love mathematics? Is there some science behind the creating cocktails, or is that, yeah, I don't know. I've never
Yeah,
created
I
cocktails
mean,
myself.
so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, is
Hmm.
that uh, everything that I do somehow ends up being exploration and experimentation. And even with cocktails, like there is some science to it, and if you really want, you can like talk about what goes with what, and how like there are rules around making cocktails. But even those rules are meant to be broken from time to time.
Like in many things, but
Like in many things.
you first need to understand the rules before you can break them. In many cases, again, is that the same
Yeah,
with
yeah,
cocktails?
yeah, I would say so. And basically, uh, one thing that I keep coming back to over and over again is that to do anything creative, you need to be willing to fail. You need to be willing to make a horrible cocktail so that you can make your best cocktail ever.
So your
Uh,
friends were really like unhappy, like, oh no, you tried again something horrible. Is
no,
that
I actually usually experiment first for
on
mine
yourself?
myself,
Okay.
but there were some mishaps. Like one of one story that was really nice. We had because for a while I was making these parties, cocktail parties at home, like at my place, and a couple of friends were over, and I had this idea of you know what, I'm gonna try something new, despite people being there already, and then I made the cocktail, and and I looked at it, and it looked like this horrible brown. Like it really
So
reminded
tasteful.
one of not something delicious. And then I was like, okay, I stepped into it. Good. Kids, would you like some? And I was like handing it over to someone. Would you like some? Because it's delicious, but it really looked horrible, right? So, uh, yeah, sometimes you just have to experiment, and sometimes you're gonna make something that doesn't look good but tastes good, and that's fine.
Mm,
And that's just like with everything. Like you can, I design currently I'm designing a game as well, but also lean poker is kind of a game in a sense, and even with game design, everything is experimentation. You
mm,
are not coming up with a game from zero. You have a couple of ideas, but in the end you are going to create a prototype, a paper prototype of your game, and then you are going to ask your friends over and try it, right? And the lights that I have, like you don't see the lights up there, similar to what's behind me, but the lights up there, they are actually this hexagonal, like it designed almost like sculpture, and that's something I
mm.
built over several iterations. So yeah, everything I do has this everything is about experimentation. And yeah, if I really want to share something that's probably not many people know, bartending.
Bartending, that's and but the second part of the question is how did that influence you? And I already heard that, yeah, being creative, being daring to fail. I can definitely imagine that as a software engineer, that's something that's helpful, especially when you create a game. Is
Mhm.
Are there other things about the bartending and the creating cocktails that has influenced other parts of your life?
Hmm. I mean, basically that's what I wanted to focus on, this whole experimentation thing. I
Hmm.
don't really have anything else to add. If
No,
I
that's
really
okay.
wanted to, I would probably not try to add something to the cocktails, but maybe add something to the other thing I mentioned around activism, which also had a huge impact on me because I think earlier in my career, I was more the kind of person who had a strong opinion
Mm.
and who would go out and tell people her opinion. And I was like, if you don't agree with me, you're idiot. And that was kind of my attitude. And I think that being an activist and talking to a lot of people and especially like there were these trainings around nonviolent communication and like the art of persuasion and stuff like that. And one thing that I learned from that is a lot of humility of there isn't one truth. Everyone has their own truth, and you have to be open to their truth. Even if you think that it's an illogical truth,
Hmm.
if you approach that truth with curiosity and trying to understand, you have a much better chance of either learning something new or poking with your questions of true curiosity, poking the other person in a way that they realize something about their beliefs that they otherwise wouldn't have. And I think that's something that changed me a lot. Like and that actually didn't even really start with the activism. It started with me becoming a member of Mensa, the High IQ Society.
Wow.
And when I joined Mensa, I was like, oh, now I will be among smart people, so everyone will agree with me. Oh boy, I was so wrong. Like, yeah, and I think that in Mensa I learned a lot about that as well. Like just because someone doesn't agree with you, even if you think that their
Because
beliefs
now
are
there
built
were
on
the
logic.
wait, because I think you go very fast, but what I think you said is that there there were still people that you disagree, and before you would say they're idiots, but now because they're in Mensa, you know they're not idiots. So
Yeah.
it kind of forces you to
Yeah, it
reframe
kind of
that idea.
made me think about it. Like, okay, like here's someone who doesn't agree with me on something, and like that
And I know
person
he's
was
super
actually
smart
good
or
at
she's super
arguing,
smart.
right? And
Yeah, right,
he cannot be an idiot. He's among the 1% of the highest IQ people. Now, of course, since then I kind of understood that smart is not the same as intelligent, and that's also something that was a big learning for me, that just because someone can fill out an IQ test without any mistakes, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are also smart. But yeah.
right. Okay, that's indeed the whole, yeah, the how yeah how would I say it? Yeah, well, an IQ test is just a map of a reality, but that's not the reality, and there's multiple ways of looking at
That's one thing, and the other thing is that the IQ test is testing the hardware and not the software.
Oh, say more about that. That I've never heard that phrase. How does that
so
work? So wait, you
so
said the IQ test tests the hardware.
yeah, the
Wow.
the the capacity of your brain to learn. It doesn't
Ah,
measure if you actually use that capacity to learn good stuff, but it more measures, can you recognize patterns in uh, so if you see a pattern, do you recognize it, and what level of complexity of pattern can you still recognize? But that doesn't mean that you have spent time to actually learn the facts that are like the basic facts of reality. It doesn't mean that you are not wrong about a lot of the things that happen in the world. It doesn't mean that you actually always use your ability to recognize patterns. It's just the ability to recognize patterns. So you can be dumb as hell and have a high intelligence, and you can be smart without having high intelligence.
wow, I really like that. This is already part that, yeah, I really love that part. I'm probably going to quote you on that. I have a couple of yeah, I know a couple of people who recently been struggling about how smart they were and were based on how would I call it, in therapy decided, okay, maybe I should do an IQ test to test something to understand themselves
Mhm.
better. And but that really thinking about, okay, this is just the capacity of your brain, doesn't really tell you how you use it. That might also help.
Yeah.
Wonderful conversations. I really like that. Definitely that quote I'm going to reuse as well. Okay, let's move to that next question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what would have become of you?
Whew. So that brings us on to another topic.
Mhm.
That will be ADHD. So I have ADHD, and that means that I have so many hobbies that I can't even count, and that's why it's really hard to tell what I would be doing, because there are just so many things I could be doing, and I like sometimes I wish I just had a second life and like have another chance at doing something else. But a bunch of things that I've been doing over time. I've been playing in a band, uh, like a musician. I also have, it's in Hungarian, but next to my professional channel, I also have a channel about skiing, because I really enjoy
Wow.
skiing. So I could be, I don't know, I could be a lifestyle influencer skiing, or yeah, I love tinkering. Like I've been making stuff. I could be a product designer, like physical stuff, product designer. Uh, there are just so many things I would love to do in my life, and
Mhm.
it's really hard uh, to pick just one. And maybe that's why I think someone asked me this question a couple of years ago. And then I eventually came to the answer that if I had to choose one thing in my life, like I couldn't be, or I could restart my life, and I had to choose different career paths than
Mhm.
what I did, and I knew what I know now, I would probably become a kind of a YouTube personality who is all about trying stuff. Like not excelling at anything, but like trying everything. Like every video is me trying something completely new as kind of a
Mm.
challenge. And I think that would be the thing that I would really enjoy doing. Uh, and there is, I just found out a few days ago that there is such a YouTube influencer, and her show is called Challenge Accepted, and like that's exactly what I would do.
Okay, I like that. And I think indeed, with with all the hobbies and everything that you already talked about, there is already a lot that you do. I think what you talked about with the cocktails is like, okay, you like tinkering, you like exploring, you like being creative, and I can definitely see that. Yeah, that would inspire you, and that you would, yeah, would love to do these kind of things. So that's wonderful thing. Um, and um, you now know that, and like you say, you have many hobbies. um, did you already know this when you were young? For example, at 8 you were really into computers and those first parts. um, did you already knew that you liked creativity, you like to do much stuff, or were you then so focused on computers that that was the only thing you did?
I was always doing multiple things. Like even as a kid, I didn't even think of, like, for a long time I didn't want to become a programmer. I was just programming on the side. I wanted to be a musician. That was the
Oh,
for longest time, I think that was my game plan. Unfortunately, it turns out that music is the one of the few things that I don't have uh, talent for. Like, really, it's weird that I can learn so many things uh, to an okay level. Like I started photography, and in 6 months I won a prize. So
wow.
it wasn't a big one, but just something that someone said that, okay, this is the best picture among these. That was already a big thing for me. And so I quickly become okay at a lot of things. Usually I don't have the patience to become excellent at anything.
Mhm.
But with music, I tried for such a long time, and I just never got even decently okay. Like I was playing in a band, but honestly, it yeah, I wouldn't say that I was good at it in any way, not even
But you
remote.
still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was just really not good at playing music, especially live. Like no.
But,
So yeah,
but it's, and is that something that you now know or that you already knew at that time?
I didn't want to admit it to
Admit it.
myself.
Okay.
But yeah, so even during my PhD, I was still playing in a band, and every band I played, after a while they kicked me out. It was like there are three different bands that are currently touring bands that I started.
Wow.
And
And then
from
you
all
still
of
got
them,
kicked
I
off.
got kicked off because I was good at finding the very good musicians who would go on to become touring bands. But
Wow.
I was horrible at playing myself. So that's something that I could never really master. Yeah. But yeah, I
That,
mean, I even as a kid, I was very creative. I always wanted to build something. Uh, Either on the computer, or once I started building a table, and then with my father we finished it, and then that table was standing in our living room for a while.
so okay. Nice things already. Let's move to that next question because I have the feeling we're already kind of partially into that. Is that what is your biggest challenge and why is it a good thing for you?
What is my biggest challenge? And well, I
At least
guess
a challenge that you want to share openly on the internet, of course.
yeah, yeah. I mean, huh. So I guess what you refer to is that not getting any good at music. But I would say my biggest challenge is just focusing on one thing.
Mm.
Like for me, it's always like when I have to just do one thing for a long time,
Hmm.
I tend to feel like I get pulled in so many directions all the time. and I'm getting better at focusing at one thing, like especially in the last couple of years. But for the longest time, I really had to like make an effort to not get pulled in a million directions. And why is it a good thing for me? Well, it's creativity. Like I always have a ton of ideas, and those ton of ideas, some of them end up being good things that I then share with others. Uh, Lean poker was one of those things where I just had a crazy idea. Actually, it was multiple things that I was uh, doing at the same time, and then they somehow mixed in my brain into this new thing that wasn't around before. So just having this really wide range of interests allows me to just mix things up and create new things by just combining things that weren't combined before.
Mm. Yeah, and that's indeed that why I'm asking the question. What's was a good thing about it? And I yeah, I wasn't sure what I was alluding to when I said feel like we're going to, because indeed you were talking already
Mm.
about a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah.
So that is yeah, I'm not so surprised about that answer. Um, and I see that also with many people here on the show, that okay, focus is sometimes, and I think, I don't know if it's more these kind of times. I think we with smartphones and all kind of things, we're living in a very fast paced
Mm.
environment where we're bombarded with messages, we're bombarded with things that want our attention. And
Mm.
I, yeah, I have the feeling that it's a lot harder for many people to focus. But with you, what I'm hearing is it's like it's also in the hobbies, it's also in a lot of things in your life. It's not just with your devices. It's really, yeah, a focus part.
Yeah, and I was like that before devices, right?
Exactly,
So
that's what I heard earlier. Yeah.
yeah.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful, and I thank you for sharing it, because I think it's also important for many people to realize, like, we see you when we see you online on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever, we see a big part of that, and that might look focused for some people, but actually what you're saying is, well, there is a lot of things, and that is not just the negative part, but that also is part of your creativity, I would say, part of why you
Mm.
can see multiple things. I think it's really important
Yeah.
to stress that out, that it's not just the negative part. So thanks you
Mm.
for sharing it. I want to
Mm.
move to that next question, and I'm really looking forward to the answer. What drives you? Because I feel a lot of passion. You focus on a lot of stuff, but that typically also means drive. And when you try creating a band and getting thrown out and still creating another band, that also is some kind of drive, some kind of passion. Do you know where
Mm.
that's coming from?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's always about leaving a better world behind. And it's interesting because I never wanted to have children. Never. Like it's not in my blood somehow. But for me, my children is all of the things that I create over time. And and basically what drives me is when I feel like I'm doing something that is beneficial for others, or I can create something that is either fun or useful for people, and something that just adds to the world in a sense, right? And I guess that's the main drive. Like when I was playing music, I just wanted to entertain. When I'm writing code, I always care about the user. Even if the user is me, I don't care about the technology itself, and that's something that's very different for me than for most of the software engineers I know. most software engineers care a lot about what technology they are using, or understanding the depth of it. Um, I care a lot about like the details. Like I can obsess a lot about how the memory handling is done in certain situations, stuff like that. But it's not just for the sake of understanding. It's always for the sake of creating a better product. And with building anything, like I don't really like that's kind of what can feel weird for a lot of people, that I when people ask me, okay, well, what language do you use, what language do we have to use right now? Well, what's around? I don't care, because for me, in the end, what I care about is I want to be in a user interview, watching the user using the product that I just built, and I want to see that little spark of light in their eyes when they say, "Oh my God, this is so much easier now." Like this is what drives me. Like having those little feedbacks from people of, ah, this what you said here, or what you did here, or what you built here, that was valuable for me. And yeah,
So what?
just
So it's the inspiring of people, of impacting people's lives is what I
yeah.
is that something
Mm.
I'm hearing? Yeah,
Yeah. So
quite
basically, just leaving a mark in the lives of people, yeah, positive mark. And
wow.
yeah.
That's yeah, that's a very nice thing to be driven by, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I can imagine that it gives you a lot of energy when you get such a spark out of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And it's uh, I don't know. Sometimes people like I'm a bit hesitant to say this because it just can come off as a bit of a narcissism. But when someone say writes me a message on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed this content of yours," or "Oh, I just tried your product and it's just these are the moments that are worth living for." And it's not because I feel like I did something great. It's because I feel like I made a positive impact, and that's what I want to do.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's. I've had a couple of times of feedback from people when I changed their lives or when I had an impact on,
Yeah.
and I just remember the energy that that gives. Like, yeah, it's like it feels like being on top of the world. Like, okay, and it's not about me at that moment. It's really about them. It's like, okay, I had, yeah, whatever that then means, and that's definitely something that I can imagine being driven by. Thank you for sharing it. And yeah, what you said, the I don't see the narcissism in what you said there is like it I can really understand that when people tell you like, hey, you had an impact on my life, that brings joy.
Hmm.
That's because it's the feeling I have, at least with me, and I hear some sincerity there with you as well. It's not so much about you, but it's much really about, okay, this person's life is now better because of something I did, and you're kind of happy about for them more than for yourself. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah, that's a very correct interpretation. I mean, I heard someone was talking about Elon Musk at some point, and I don't remember who, but someone who is really close to him. And this person said, Elon really wants the world to be saved as long
Mhm.
as he gets to be the one saving it.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I think that's not the good pattern, right?
exactly.
I also want the world to be saved, and I'm really happy if I get to play a part in it.
But it's
But
not your main goal.
it's not about me. It's
Mm.
about saving the world. And if I don't get a part in it, I would like to get a part in just helping someone in a small way. uh, and yeah, it's not about me being like, it's not about my importance. It's about that sense of I did something good.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And yeah, that's totally different. And I like the, well, like is maybe the wrong word, but I find that the description you give about, or that person gave about Elon Musk is very recognizable. It's indeed in the beginning when you first learn about that person, like, oh, he wants to save the world, all he's doing all that good stuff, and then you see that other side. Well, like, but if he can't do it, some of the things that happened the past couple of years, where you saw like, yeah, he just gets annoyed if he can be the one doing the help and things like, yeah, okay, we're not here to bash on other people, but
Yeah,
I recognize what you say about that.
yeah.
Um, let's move to that next question. uh, what do you consider at this moment your biggest achievement? And before I jump into that question, I've realized while doing this interview that there is actually, for a lot, there is some question below that, and it's basically a biggest achievement is asking about that. It's asking you to brag and to be really proud about something. Is that easy for you as a person to brag about something?
Huh. It depends.
Hmm.
It depends. It's okay. I'm not sure if I can define clearly when it's easy to brag about something and when it's not.
Hmm.
Uh, I feel like probably for me, it's easier to brag about something that I built and that I can objectively see as something that's good. And then it's a lot harder to brag about things where it's more connected to my person, because I don't like to brag about myself, but I like to brag about my creations, if that makes sense. Like I'm a proud mom. That's what I'm saying when it
Yeah.
comes to my creations.
Okay.
uh,
So
so
let's talk about what you consider from your creations your biggest achievement, the thing that you're most proud
yeah, I mean, it has to be limb poker, right?
of. Hmm.
It's something that I. So let's just really quickly talk about it if someone doesn't know this product. So basically, the background of limb poker is that I was when I was in high school, I was making these websites for money. uh, I had no clue how people do these things, so I just figured it out myself. And the way I figured it out is I just logged in I just SSH'd into the server and changed the PHP code on the production server, and I had no copy. So
Hmm.
the
Wow.
only copy was the one on the server, and I was changing that.
But for in your defense, this was the 90s, and at that moment,
And I
yeah,
was a
uh,
kid.
and you were a kid. But even I've worked on projects in the early 2000s where companies were, for whatever reason, against source control systems and anything like that.
Yeah.
It always terrified me. But yeah, in the, especially at the in the 90s and then the early 2000s, it was still not as common as it is today. So
Yeah.
in that defense, but still, let's. I
Yeah, it
interrupted
was
you.
the
Let's go back.
Wild West. It was
It was
definitely
the
the
Wild
Wild
West.
West. So anyway, but after I went on to become an engineer at larger companies, of course I couldn't do that there, and I was baffled by the practice of releasing software every 6 months. Like,
Mhm.
how do you even know if the thing you're building is useful? Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around that. For me, the feedback loop was me making line of change, hitting escape colon WQ and refreshing the page. And that was my feedback loop. And if there was something deployed into production that way that was a problem, someone would message me on ICQ that, hey, your website is down. That's what that was it. So for me, uh, this attitude of having that quick feedback loop and experimentation, that was important. And having come into these companies where this wasn't the norm, I found that really hard to deal with. So at some point, I started to advocate for continuous delivery when I found out that it has a name. Uh, and uh, and when I was doing that, after a while, I got into a situation where my manager trusted me to try it, and then we wanted to roll it out across the company. And at that point, I realized that it wasn't just my managers that weren't on board with this kind of work, but also my peers. So I wanted to create something that helps people understand and feel the benefits of that quick feedback loop. Um, and that's when I created Lean Poker. And basically, this is a day-long gamified workshop where we have teams. Each team has their little poker bot, and these poker bots are playing against each other. Each of them starts with the same bot, and each team can deploy at any time. But as they are coding and deploying their new versions, the bots are continuously playing. So whenever someone deploys something that improves on their performance compared to the others, they are going to start winning points, and the others are going to start losing points, right? But at the same time, if they deploy some error into production, that's gonna cost them, right? And
But
and
if
here's
you,
the
wait, because you go very fast. But did I also understand that if you take a long time to create something really cool that will make you a lot of points, but it takes you like 2 hours to deploy, by that you have already lost a lot of points because the other players are iterating fast,
exactly. So you don't have time to do big upfront design. If you
right?
do big
Mhm.
upfront design, you are going to lose in Lean Poker. That's kind of the thing. And it basically, it's a metaphor for how startups work. And
Mm.
that was the intention as well, to create this metaphor. And once I started running these workshops, I realized that people are actually learning more from it than I expected. It just became this generic tool that is kind of a slap in the face, in the sense that you come into a Lean Poker event, you think you are so good at software engineering already, and then you come in and leave completely beaten up. And during the next couple of weeks, we will be like, okay, I learned this, that it's not perfect, but how do I make it better? And the weeks after a Lean Poker event, you can learn so much because you just had this really strong feedback of how your processes work, because it's just such a short feedback loop there.
I really like that. I really like that. Yeah, and um, with it's not just well. A lot of people have a hard time learning this thing, and what you're doing is you now have a workshop, and I heard you say that it's for 1 day. So when people are playing, you get instantly feedback, and in a day you immediately learn what in a lot of companies takes months to years sometimes to learn. It's
And you maybe not even learn it. So
oh, because the
it's
feedback
one
is
of,
too long.
yeah, it like the feedback loop with Lean Poker is so extremely tight. Like any mistake you make, it's not just that you rarely, not just that you get feedback almost immediately about what you did, but also it's obvious if it was good or bad. Like that chart on the like there is this trend chart on the dashboard, and that is going to tell you the truth. It's like a mirror that you look into and you see the ugliest problems in your practices that you probably wouldn't even notice otherwise, which is like Would you pay to get slapped in the face? Well, maybe if you want to grow and you need that slap in the face, then yes.
Well, there are some peoples who have very strange kinks, and but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but that's not what I meant.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I. But I wanted make it clear that it's really about something else, and that to separate that, because it's indeed, um, yeah, feedback is crucial for learning. And I think we can't improve if we think what we're doing is already perfect, because
Hmm.
we might focus on other things. And okay, we can improve if we work on certain skills and whatever. But I think getting the feedback, it really helps to see, okay, this is why I want to improve.
Yeah.
And if you want to win that poker tournament, or you want your bots to win at that moment.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm really like maybe just to add a bit on top of that, like I'm really proud of Lean Poker itself, but I'm really proud of in connection to that is that at some point I was lucky enough to have a couple of like my heroes, the people I was admiring from the distance, people who speak at conferences or wrote books. Some of them somehow ended up in a Lean Poker event, like
Mm,
4 or 5 of them at the same event. And it was that event was the most mind bending for me because these people had very different experience than regular people in a sense because their experience was already huge and they came into Lean Poker with that experience, right? And even then, the discussion at the end of that Lean Poker event, we always have a closing circle where we discuss what we learned. But that closing circle, that was such an amazing discussion, and there was so many knowledge just being created in that instant uh, by us discussing the things that happened over the day. So I guess I'm really proud of having built Lean Poker and the impact that it has on people's lives across the globe, like over 100 events by now across 3 or 4 continents. I'm not even sure anymore. Um, and also that it's something that could even give something valuable to people whom I would have never thought that they would walk into a Lean Poker and still learn something because I was thinking of them as kind of these idols.
mhm. I also want to thank you for stressing out on the closing part, on the reflecting part, because I think, yeah, there is a lot of I've seen a lot of agile games where they sometimes ignore that part, and for me, the learning is mostly in the discussions, and it's not
Yeah.
like they don't learn without it, but I think it's expanding and it's understanding that I learned this, but the person next to me, maybe I've been pair programming with that person, but this person has learned something completely different, even if we were in the
Mm.
same workshop doing the same thing. And that is so valuable to hear. And maybe somebody completely disagrees with what I've learned. He or she has learned the opposite. But yeah, that again, like what you said earlier on, they're not morons or idiots because they think something else. No, we all learn
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah.
Is that something you did right from the start when you started working with Lean Poker, or is that something that evolved over
Yeah,
time?
that was part of the concept from the beginning. So basically, we have these hour-long coding sessions, and then we take a break, start with a short retro.
Hmm.
So even during the day, we have short retros, but those are usually short because people feel uncomfortable sharing during the event because they want to win, right? So,
Right.
so they are not
Ah,
going
that's
to tell.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So people, because sorry, I'm going to break into the story, but I really think it's interesting to share, and then I'll let you go back. I
Mm.
remember being in a game at an agile conference, and I was there's like 4 or 5 tables, and we were allowed to share at our table. But I was also looking around and looking at other strategies for other things. And at some point, I think in the second round, we had cards and we could share things. But I just laid out my cards openly because the goal was that at our table we would win. And I was like, then I'm not going to hide stuff from my partners.
Yeah.
And I do remember that the facilitator was just blown away. Why would you even do that? I didn't tell you. I was like, why wouldn't I not do it? Why wouldn't I not share what I have with the people? Because the goal is to improve. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is a part of learning, winning in your game, but I would want to learn even more and be even better at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that what you just said is like people focusing so much on winning. I find that very interesting. A lot of us are doing that, but for
Yeah.
me, workshops like that, the real winning is the learning. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. But still, people want to win, and
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
mind that. And I don't mind that. What I usually do is I try to just use these retros as information collection in a sense.
Hmm.
But the closing circle, like the little retros between the hour-long coding sessions, those are usually 5 to 10 minutes. I get through it quickly. But at the end, like the closing circle, that can be an hour because that's
Hmm.
when we discuss the details. And when we had this event with all these more established people, we actually had to do a separate follow-up meeting a few days later to keep continue the closing circle because we just couldn't wrap it up. There was so much that we wanted to discuss still.
I like that. And did that um, in that session, because I assume you as a facilitator, you always learn something as well. Um,
Hmm?
when you did that, and that was that very long session, did you learn more, or do you have the feeling that people learned more than if they would not have much time or don't want to spend much time on these kind of things?
Uh, I mean, for me, it's always a learning. Yes, I would say that definitely, especially in the first few dozen events, right? By now, there are sometimes events when I go come away and say, okay, these folks couldn't surprise me anymore. But it's even today, that's not the norm, right?
Hmm.
Um, but but I guess the really important part of Lean Poker is the discussion at the end. That's where the real learning is happening, and also the days after. Like this
Hmm.
is something that Llewellyn Farco said, and he said that he used this quote from what was the name of this boxer? Anyway, uh, the quote says that like everyone has a plan until they get slapped in the face. And he kind of used that metaphor and said like when you come into lean poker, you basically you're not learning that much during the event, but
Hmm.
then when you go on to work in your day job in the next couple of days and weeks, you just keep going like, why does my face hurt? Like there was this punch in my face and then now it's hurting. And I'm trying to figure out why there is this difference, what happened. And often it is either that during lean poker I did something differently because I was focused on winning, so I kind of one of the things that happens with lean poker events is that people focus so much on winning that they forget to do the things that they believe are the right way to do things.
Hmm.
And then when they walk away from lean poker, they realize, hey, we weren't doing that thing and we were more effective. How does that work? Why is that? And one of the things that I learned like that is that you don't always have to write tests.
Hmm.
Heresy, but you don't. There are situations where writing a test is not giving you more feedback than finding that feedback in some other way. Another thing that I learned myself at Bean Booker is that if you have to choose, like if you are under pressure, you are under time pressure, and you have to choose between writing a test and creating a piece of monitoring, you
Mm-hmm.
have to choose the monitoring. Any monitoring that you have in production is way more valuable than the test that you have in your test environment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't write tests. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want anyone to take that message away. You should write tests. What I'm saying is that having a production monitoring is more valuable than the test. And what I'm saying is that you shouldn't write tests just because it's best practice. You should write tests because it gives you feedback. And if there's another way to get that feedback, an easier way to get that feedback, then get that feedback in a different way. Like
I
that kind
really
of
like that.
pragmatism.
Yeah, I really like the observability is really crucial in our current world and work world. Um, Under the condition that it's safe. I think in the lean
Yeah.
poker thing, it's probably not that bad if we have to restart things. If lives are at stake or if other things are at stake, then that we need to have the quality. But again, that's it depends, right? It always depends, and so I really
Uh,
like that you stress the fact that observability is so important. We need to
yeah.
know what's going on. I want to know before my customers know that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And I can
So
imagine if you have a bot. Sorry if I interrupt you, but if you have a bot, your bot won't tell you that it's not working. But if you have monitoring that tells you, hey, I'm using too much memory, or I have trouble generating,
yeah.
whatever, that's really crucial information.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say that to your point, uh, there is this question that I learned from Ken Beck, and it's a
Hmm.
very important question. What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose in the sense if I have a product, if it's something that I'm still experimenting with and there are no lives at stake, I have a very different thing to lose than if I'm building something that hundreds of people or thousands of people are using and maybe even lives are at stake. These are two very different situations, and you should act differently.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
if what you can lose is lives, you better be very rigorous with your testing. You better be very rigorous with your design. When what you have to lose is not learning something new and not doing another 100 experiments in a day,
Mm.
then you should be a lot less rigorous with those things, and you should focus on like just getting as many experiments out as possible. So asking this question of what do we have to lose, that's a really important question.
I have never or I don't remember hearing or reading Ken Beck talk about that, but it's well, he did write something about uh, poker as well, and I think at some point he also talked about loss aversion and the fact that you've lost already money. But that
Yeah.
sentence I didn't hear him right, or I don't remember at least. So thank you for bringing that
Mm.
up because I really like that statement. Let's move to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share? Is there anything that you say, okay, this is something I would like to share with the people
Hmm. Okay. I at the risk of sounding like a broken record, experiment, experiment, experiment. like, and more, even more important, like, I think for me, the most important thing about agility is the understanding of agility isn't moving fast. Agility is changing direction fast. And
Hmm.
that is something that, like, most of the industry gets wrong. And I that's kind of the part of the reason why I don't necessarily uh, align myself with agile, in the sense of I don't call myself an agile coach,
Hmm.
although I could. I definitely could, based on what I do. Um, but there is a lot, like, I feel like a certain segment of the industry has started using agile as synonym for fast,
Hmm.
and just getting things out the door as fast as possible. Um, it is wrong. That's not what we should be doing. Uh, we should be fast in the sense of putting small things out as quick as possible. Like, we should have a high frequency of releasing. That's true, but not at the cost of cramming everything into that single release. Like, you cannot do that. It's against the laws of physics to cram more things into a time slot than fits, right? You cannot go faster. What you can do is always think about what's the smallest thing I can do now. And just to give you a very specific example of what I tend to do, if someone gives me a feature that we want to build, for me, it's always the first question is, why this feature? What's the customer problem? And I won't shut up until someone shows me a customer who is struggling with that thing, because I want to understand why they are struggling with it, and I want to give value to them. I don't want to build the CTO's or the CEO's favorite feature. I don't care about that. I want to build what what is the useful for the user, right? So I want to know what is the problem that they are trying to solve at that moment. And then the next thing I will do is ask myself, okay, so this person wants to do that thing. They want to achieve that. What if I were in their place, and the only difference between them and me is that I can code. I have the amazing ability to write code. What would I do? What script would I do? What script would I write? And I will write that script. And here's the thing, when we, like most engineers, when we build products for users, we tend to think of these feature complete things.
Hmm.
But actually, we shouldn't. At least we shouldn't always think of the feature complete thing. My agility tip is, think about what would be the very specific. I want to solve this very specific case for myself. What would be the script that I would write? What would be the bash script that I would write? Not even necessarily Python. But I don't want you to get crazy, right?
Hmm.
Of course, it can be Python if that's the easiest way. But yeah, how would you solve it for yourself quickly without worrying about all the complexities of a polished product? And then once you did that, then you can start polishing. But
Hmm.
here's the thing, if you did that, if you wrote that script and you teach that user how to use that script, or you teach a customer success manager to use that script, you have solved the customer problem. Even if it's not polished and it's a prototype, you have solved the problem and you made one customer happy.
Yeah,
And after all, that's what I'm here for.
yeah, that I really like that. It's not, and I've seen so many people sometimes focusing on perfectionism and whatever. It's like, no, no, no. Let's first see if I can solve a problem. Maybe I don't even understand the problem correctly, and if it's not polished, I can get some feedback, and then I can start polishing when things are exactly or more or less what the person wants, and I at least I understand the problem. I really like that. Yeah, that
And just start
state.
coding. Like, don't think,
Yeah,
don't overthink it. A lot of people tend to like, oh, I need to design this first, or I need to think it through, or I think need to think of the implications in the future. No, just get it done. Just get the simplest thing done that
um,
you can get done now.
yeah. There is a book there. You remind me about that. There's a book there that's called "Show Your Work," and it's about, okay, when you do stuff, put your work out as quick as possible. And this is more about design and other kind of things. But what you're saying, it makes me think really hard about that, because it's yeah, start coding, start doing it. I see so many people then looking at whatever thousand YouTube videos on how to do that, and buying the perfect equipment, and doing all that stuff. I'm like, no, start doing the work, learn from doing.
And that's what I love about this whole. So I criticize generative AI a lot, but one thing that I do love about it is that I can start working with a brand new framework, with a brand new language, and I can get stuff done right away because I have enough understanding from other languages that I can tell when the chatbot is generating the wrong
Mm.
code, but I don't have to know the syntax right away.
Yeah, and then, well, for me, okay, the sidetrack on that is that, for me, the one where I think most of the or where a big influence what AI will be is because it gives you instant feedback. You ask a question, you get something, it might be wrong because you didn't write the right question, or I might wrote wrong specifications. Normally, if you write out everything and then someone else has to develop it, takes at least half an hour to a couple
Yeah.
of days. You now ask something on a chat box, and then you realize almost instantly, like, oh, my description was not clear. Reach
Yeah.
start, and that's the part for me, the instant feedback. Well, instant, it sometimes takes 10 seconds to get something back from ChatGPT or some other tool, but that's really fast, I would say. And even if it's about, I don't know, generating pictures or videos or whatever, you instantly understand how this is. I could ask it a little bit different to make it, I don't know, a different color or a different kind of thing. And then we're back again to experimenting and feedback.
But I want to go on a side tangent again
Go ahead.
because one thing that just want to talk about is like the advantage of LLMs, and maybe the criticism that I have about it is
Mhm.
that LLMs are really good at taking a really rigorous description of what you want to do and just turning it into syntax correct code.
Mm.
Uh, and basically, like, one of the things that a lot of people seem to have decided that now that we have LLMs, we will have this amazing world where someone can just come around and give a description of a product to an LLM and it will write the code for them. And I think where this goes wrong is exactly this notion of what does like a detailed enough description mean.
Mm.
Turns out we had a machine for, or a program for decades that can turn a rigorous description of an app into a working app. It's called a compiler.
Yes.
It's just that that rigorous description had to have a very specific syntax.
Exactly.
And what
Yeah.
happens with LLMs is that I don't have to worry about the syntax as much, but I still need to give the same rigorous description. And
Mm.
that's the heart of software engineering. Software engineering is not hard when you have to take a very detailed description of what you need to do and write code from it. No, the hard thing is taking the users and the product managers and the CEOs and whoever's vague idea that they already think is a rigorous description, but it's not. It's just a vague idea. Take that vague idea and turn it into actual rigorous description of what you want to do. And that's software engineering. And basically, you can start calling it prompt engineering. But in the end, your job is, the job is not to take the rigorous description and turn it into a software. That's the compiler's job. Your job as an engineer is to create that rigorous description.
So AIs are just sophisticated compilers in a way.
Yeah, exactly. That's my claim. You can quote me on that.
Yeah, then I need to write it down. Yeah, but I'll of course, this is recorded so I can find it back. But I really like that. I really like that. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Let's move to that next question, because I think this is, I think you gave for that one question about personal tip, you already gave 3 or 4. I would need to look back and listen for the multitude of tips that are in there. So thank you for that. Let's move to that next part. What have you learned about remote working? Uh, I think the past couple of years, well, most of us have experimented or had to go with remote working in 2020. But I don't know, did you work before already remote, and what did you learn?
Yeah. Uh, so interesting thing. I was very much a proponent of being in the office. Like I thought that people had to sit in the same room to be effective. Uh,
Mm,
and 2020 completely broke my assumption. Like I'm one of those people who now says that that was BS. What I believed back then was based on me never really trying what remote work
mm.
is. I would never go back to an office at this point.
Wow. Okay, so you
So
completely swapped sides in a way.
I completely swapped sides, and it's especially interesting because I started my career working alone, right? And that's basically working from home. Uh, but as soon as I was working with other people, I was working in an office. And I think what I misjudged is that I thought that I enjoyed or I was more effective because I was in an office. No, I was less effective because I was in an office. I was more effective because I had people around me to help me, to work together with. That's the important part. And turns out that when we moved from working in the office to working at home, my productivity just skyrocketed. I got so much more productive. And I still like I don't want to go into an office. I want to work from home because for me that's the environment where I can focus the most. That's the environment where I actually get to uh, yeah, just be productive. And when I do want to work together with someone, I can do it via Zoom, and that's fine for me. So yeah, I completely did a 180 on that. And I'm actually criticizing people right now who want to force others into the office. Like
Mm,
I believe that if someone wants to work from the office, it's fine. Like I completely support people who want to work from the office, but forcing people into the office, every single study that was actually not sponsored by someone who is interested in convincing us that the office is good, like actual real studies, they consistently come to the conclusion that there is no productive gain uh, from working in the office, and uh, there is a productivity loss because companies who force people into the office tend to have a higher attrition, especially from the best talent. People are leaving companies where they
and
cannot work from home.
and I want to stress what you said. The most important people are the yeah, most contributing people are leaving the
Yep.
maybe, well,
Those who can.
Those who can, and anyway,
Yeah,
that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, those who can, they were leaving, and you might be stuck with those who can't.
yeah.
And yeah, that's I really
So yeah,
yeah, it's um, it's an important thing, and it's nice to hear it from someone who originally thought something completely different.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's about that's what you say. We are sometimes in the office less productive because of a lot of stuff that's going on.
yeah,
um, the communication is important. We need to find other ways. We still need to find ways to connect, but I think, well, for me, this podcast or this recording is an example. We do take the time to connect, and I feel that's helping, and
yeah.
that can work. And although we've never met, and okay, München is not that far. I can get there if I want, but why would I? This is well good enough and actually easier. Both of us, we feel at home in our own space, in our own safe place, and we can do this
Mm,
just as well and probably better. And
mm.
both of us will be back after this recording. We'll be back to doing whatever we want to do in our own home,
Yeah.
without one of us having to drive for, I don't know, gazillion hours to, or take a plane or whatever. So yeah.
And there is a very important point there because we talk a lot about uh, climate change and how important it is to cut back on our CO2 emissions and all that.
Mhm.
Guess what's the best way to cut back on CO2 emissions? Like not going to an office when you don't need to, right?
Mhm.
And you can say like a lot of people say that, oh yeah, but I take public transport. So here's the interesting thing. I was at Deutsche Museum a couple of weeks ago. Those of you who don't know, Deutsche Museum is this museum in Munich where you can actually, like, it's a science and technology museum. And one
Mhm.
of the exhibitions there has these weights that show you, like, the weight of the CO2 that is emitted over a certain distance of transporting one person. And you have those weights next to each other, and you have one weight for a car, one weight for a train, one for a bus. And I expected that the one with the car would be heavy, and it is. But here's the interesting thing. I expected that the train and the bus was going to be much smaller. It's not.
Hmm.
It's like third at most. Like, it's
Wow.
still a heavy, it's still a heavy weight. So you are, yes, you are saving CO2 by taking the train. I'm not saying yet you are not, and you should take the train if you have to take the train, or you have to travel somewhere. But actually, not even the airplane is that much bigger than the train. It's bigger, and it does make a difference. But the most difference you can make is by not traveling unnecessarily.
Of course, I can definitely see that. Yeah, well, there is also, of course, the part that a train, when there is peak hours, there is lots of people on it, and then it's probably the best. But the
Yeah,
train is driving every hour or every whatever time between two things, and there's a lot of days, a lot of times during a day that it's probably almost empty. At least I've been into many trains. If I don't go on peak hours, that it's almost empty, and it has
yeah,
to be that large, and it has to be that, because it's the same train that will drive back and forth for a full day. And so
yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see that that part that will that is but I hadn't thought about that it would so much impact. So
So for
definitely
me,
something.
like going to the exhibition and just seeing, like, if any of the listeners are ever in Munich, go to the Deutsche Museum, find that exhibition, and just lift those weights. It's gonna change entirely how you think about transportation.
I will definitely, I will link at least the Deutsche Museum into the show notes, that people can find it
Mm.
and think about it. So thanks for bringing that, because that's, yeah, something I didn't think about. So thanks. I've learned again something. I have the feeling for most of the questions I'm already learning, so that's really nice.
I'm glad to hear
Let's
that.
let's move to that next question. What is a book that you have read that you want to talk about?
Okay. So I feel like that, especially tying into this discussion, the book that I need to mention is called The Goal from Elijah Goldratt.
And that's the one, and with
That's the one,
multiple
exactly.
versions. It's
Yeah.
interesting that I know that right now it's the 40th edition. The copy that I have looks exactly the same, although with me it's probably the 10th anniversary or something like that. So, and that, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's, yeah, many people like that book. Why do you want to talk about this book here? What do you like so much about that book?
So for me, it was one of those eye-opening books where you realize that it's basically the same message that I keep repeating, like you about experimentation, but also there is a very important point there about bottlenecks and just not like knowing where to focus and yeah, basically this whole idea of it doesn't matter if if like you shouldn't think of all of the things at once. You just don't end up making progress if you care about everything at once. You should find what's the most impactful thing right now and focus on that
Hmm.
one impactful thing, and having that focus
There
and
is
having
always
that.
one bottleneck that is the highest thing to solve.
Yeah, and just focusing on everything else is actually waste, because you don't end up gaining anything from it. And basically, when when I look around in the world, like there are so many interpretations of that, right? And it comes up in so many different contexts that we tend to uh, want to optimize every single part of a system, when indeed we are actually doing a disservice for ourselves. And one thing that that's the thing that I wanted to get to, is that if you think about how a lot of companies work, we tend to um, promote people on their individual achievements. We tend to reward people on their individual achievements, when indeed it doesn't matter how awesome a single person is if the whole system is not awesome.
Hmm.
So by having these uh, frankly idiotic systems where you get together every half a year and get to decide who went, who did the most at the company, and you reward your 5% best performers, you are actively doing harm to your organization. Because what you incentivize there is local optimizations at the level of a single person.
Mhm.
And what that does is that instead of your entire organization focusing on solving the bottleneck, everyone is going to be busy optimizing their own performance instead of focusing on the bottleneck.
Yes.
And they don't even have to be malicious about it. Like, you gave them an incentive. It's
Yeah,
on you.
they feel that they're well, that's how they're looked at. That's
Yeah,
how
they are just doing what you expect them to do, or what you sent them as a message to do. So honestly, just don't do that. Like, incentivize your people to build amazing products. Incentivize your teams. Like, incentivize the team as a whole and not individual persons, because that's not going to help you. Because
Yeah,
if you incentivize individuals to optimize themselves, they are going to optimize themselves and not going to help the other person who is actually the bottleneck in the system.
that's the thing, yeah. And it doesn't. Yeah, everybody can slack as long as you go faster than the bottleneck in a way. And I don't mean
Yeah,
slack in the negative part, but yeah, let's because we're so much into you talked earlier about burnout. We're so much into an industry that we want to push everybody, but it
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. Is there is a bottleneck somewhere else? Let's fix that. And it's not by pushing people to work until burnout that it will
yeah.
help optimize the whole system. Let's look at where the bottleneck is. I really like that way, and that's indeed in that way very logical that the goal is this popular because most companies are still struggling with that.
And
Um,
yeah, and I have to say that I don't just like Go for its message. I also like the way it is written.
hmm,
It's a story. Like this is something that there is this other author called Patrick Lencioni I'm not sure
Lencioni,
how
yes, yes.
Lencioni. His books are also a similar brand of book. Like those are also like these stories that you learn from, and I really like that storytelling uh, attitude because just giving facts is not as impactful. And this is something that I started doing with my YouTube videos recently. My first couple of videos were like me just being a smart person on camera, or at least trying to be a smart person. Maybe I'm just intelligent. Who knows? But uh, but my latest video, I kind of took a different approach, and making it a challenge and telling a story. And I'm still trying to teach people how to, in that case, rewrite an old piece of code in a way that they can succeed without disturbing uh, business opportunities or losing business opportunities. Um, but by telling a story, people get to relate more, and that leads to a deeper understanding. And I think that's what I love about the goal is that it's an engaging story. I rooted for the guy. I really
Oh
did.
yes, you're
And
really into that story, and you really want to hope that
yeah,
he
it's
finds
immersive. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I
And
recognize
that's
that.
what I'm trying to do. And frankly, like I only released one of these videos for now, but this is the direction I want to take the channel at this point, especially because of that, because I want to tell stories. The stories are much more engaging.
Mhm. Yeah, that's I really I agree, and it's so tempting, and I definitely made that mistake myself. Or sometimes trying to use the facts and trying to yeah explain certain things with facts, and yeah, that never works. It's really the storytelling and
Yeah.
yeah.
So that you need both. You need both, right? And there is ooh, what's the name of the guy? Uh, there is this ex Vox uh, journalist. He has his own channel now, and I won't remember the name. Mm, anyway, I will I will send you the name, and you can put it in the show notes. But what I really like about his style is that he's presenting like these really interesting stories of like facts, right? But the way he does it is that he connects it to person like individual stories. So he starts out the video with people on the border trying to cross and waiting days before they can cross so that they can just go and work for a week and then come back to their families. And that's you immediately have that connection to the people, right? But then quickly switches into just explaining the macroeconomics around it and the politics around it and giving you the facts, and then he switches back to the impact, to the people, to the actual individuals. And I really like that back and forth switching. uh, he's kind of that, like this is the kind of content that I want to make on the long run, where I can give a personal story, I can make that connection, but I can also give the facts, the hardcore
Well,
facts.
and I think with lean poker, in a way, what you do is people are playing, people see some of their own facts, and then later talk about it. So they invent their own stories, or they come up with their own stories for
And
these
and
things.
it's also like people are telling war stories of lean poker, right?
Exactly. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, I think you made a real big statement for the goal, both on the content and the way the way it's written. I love the style, but also yeah, the I know there's a couple of other books, agile books, that have been trying to copy the style, both the storytelling, but also the like. Okay, there is a hero, then he has something. So there's really there's some, yeah, you can draw that out. What's the hero story? And that yeah, it's been really wonderful written, and it just helps to do some stuff. Let's move to that. For me, one of the most interesting questions, and especially with you, because we've already talked about so many different things. What's a question do you think that I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
Hmm. So the funny thing is that I did read the questions before, and I remember reading this and thinking, okay, I would have to come up with a good question, and then I completely forgot to come up with a good question. um, yeah, what's a question that you should ask? Um, hmm, give me a sec. I feel like you will have to cut this out.
I want to give you all the time you need. I think
Yeah, yeah,
it's you're not the first that needs some time to think, so feel free to take the
yeah.
time.
Okay, so maybe the question that you should ask is what is my next goal?
Hmm.
Where do I
Well,
want to go next?
with everything you said and all the different kind of focus,
Yeah,
that is indeed a very interesting question to ask you. So,
like
Yvette, what is your next goal? Where do you want to go next?
so this year, when actually it was like end of last year or in January, I'm not sure, but I put out a post on LinkedIn. And that was at the point where I just started my business and I had no clue if I was going to succeed or anything. And I made a really bold claim. I said that I would want to bring lean poker to at least 10,000 engineers by the end of this year.
Wow.
I'm not even close to that. And that was like a very deliberately outrageous number.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, I think I have succeeded if I bring it to 100, right? Uh, but the reason I made that claim is because I really wish I could bring it to not just 10,000, like 100,000 engineers.
Wow.
Uh, because I I want me poker to be bigger than me.
Mm.
And part of the reason that I started allowing other people to run lean poker events, and basically just selling licenses for other people to run lean poker events, not necessarily just to make money, because yes, it's a more scalable business plan. I'm not going to lie, it is a more scalable business plan, but there is a much more important aspect here, and that is that I think that what I can give to the world right now the most is creating a new breed of software engineers who have a deeper understanding of what it means to deliver value early and often, and what it means to see that spark in the user's eye that I was talking about before. Because that joy that comes from a user thanking you for what you did, that is something that makes it worth for me, even with all the difficulties of being in the software industry. That feeling of I helped someone be more productive. So for me, Lean Poker is something that I created and that I'm really proud of. But also, I feel like it's something that should get to as many people as possible. And basically, my next goal is that to bring Lean Poker to as many software engineers as I can. And this is not an easy choice for me. It might sound like one, but to be honest, like I wish I could also at the same time run my skiing channel because I enjoy doing that. But I have at the same time 3 videos already recorded and not edited because I didn't have time to edit those videos because I was so focused on just bringing Lean Poker to more people. So yeah,
Mm.
that's the next thing. That's basically right now the thing that I'm trying to focus all of my energies on to create engineers who can really change the world, can really bring joy to the hearts of users around the world. This is my goal.
And that's a wonderful goal to have. And yeah, I can definitely also, I will link to the podcast where you talk about how you rewrite your lean poker, because I've watched a couple of episodes and I really like it because it shows a lot of what you just talked about. The one where you change the front end. I really like that because it was a really nice way. And we talked about AI and other kind of things that helped you. It was a nice example of where you said, okay, I want to start it. The original front end was like when I didn't know much about front ends, and now yeah, it looks so much nicer. And so, and again, it shows the the whole story that of what you're doing. It really is like, okay, it's not, yeah, everything we talked about, doing things fast, getting fast feedback. It's all in these videos. So and very how would I say, very transparent, very open on your challenges and on these things. So very nice. So I do hope that people will watch it and will maybe, well, not just maybe, will assign and try to learn from that. Yeah, from that. From your program and in that sense, and try to become active on Lean Poker or go to an event and learn from that. So I hope it with you with your goal. And with that, we're coming to one of the, well, the last question actually. Who do you think I should invite next?
Yeah, so I was suggesting Ashi, and I always have trouble pronouncing her last name, but
And I
that's
think that's
Ashi.
her.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. That's her. She is like, I wouldn't say that she's strictly agile territory, but
Hmm.
I did see her talk about AI twice. And one, she is really knowledgeable in the area, and two, she has a very pragmatic approach to it.
Mm.
The first time I saw her talk about AI, she was talking about neuroscience, like the actual science of the brain and the connection to how the modern networks at the time work. This is pre LLM era.
Hmm.
And that talk was mind bending for me. I really enjoyed it. I was already playing around with deep learning at the time. So I had a more understanding than the average person at the time. But Ashi's talk was just amazing. And and then this year she was talking about LLMs. And like she gave an overview of the whole architecture, but she also kind of highlighted the inherent limitations of these tools. And one thing that she said that I really enjoyed and I really found uh, profound is that she called LMs a story search engine,
Mm.
because it is trained on human stories and it is telling human stories.
And we're
It's a
back full circle.
yeah, and then she just, and I don't want to spoil the talk for anyone who wants to watch it, and maybe when you invite her, and she might talk about that, but she basically gave a really interesting demonstration of how to prompt inject. They do prompt injection and get the AI to do stuff that it shouldn't be doing. It was really a very engaging talk, and yeah, if you wanna have someone on your show who can really give you an engaging insight on AI, as she is the person.
I would love to hear. And I think, well, with some of the things you already said and what I know or what I found out about her, I think indeed she does belong here. So thank you for bringing her to the show. Um, it's been a wonderful time, Yvette. We spent almost 2 hours. It flew by.
Yeah,
That it's
yeah,
just
absolutely.
wonderful. If people want to reach out to you, what would be a good way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so there are multiple ways. You can either contact me via my website on limpoker.org
So
or via
we talked
LinkedIn.
already about it, and so yeah, I really think
Yeah.
we should bring up the website. What's the other way? So what do you want?
Or just write me on LinkedIn. I
And
am.
that's a little bit more complex. This one, I don't know if you know it by heart, but that's I think it is.
Yeah. So I would say that's probably the easiest way to contact me.
And that's indeed how I contacted you, or that we got in touch, and that we quickly organized this conversation. So yeah, it's been wonderful. Like I said, I really want to thank you for your time, because I was totally not bored. I was really engaged. It's really really wonderful conversations. I really love this moment. So thank you
And I
for
also
spending
enjoyed the discussion.
so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.